I'm here with Claudette Commanda. Claudette is a well-respected Algonquin elder here in the Ottawa area, and you were also the first Indigenous chancellor of the University of Ottawa, right? So thank you, miigwech to you, Claudette, for joining us here on this special day. So thank you.
Well, thank you for welcoming me to come here and to join you to say some words.
So what are you thinking of today on this September 30th?
I'm thinking about the survivors. I'm thinking about the residential school survivors, those that continue to be here with us, those that not return home, and of course, the children that continue to be in those unmarked graves. But I'm also thinking about the beauty of life, and the love, and the love that we are all bringing together to show that love and that honor and that respect for the survivors. And also I'm thinking about my own family who are survivors. The father of my children and my children, they are survivors of Indian residential schools.
Yeah, that's really well said, Claudette. And it's been just over a year since the Pope's apology. Have you seen anything different since that apology in this last year?
I have not seen anything different. I have not. And if we're going to speak words of truth, after all, today is the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And if there's going to be reconciliation and healing, there has to be truth. So I'm speaking my truth. I have not seen anything different. It was just words that were spoken. So where is the action that's coming from the Pope's apology? I have not seen it.
So then just in turn with that, Claudette, what would you like to see change? What are some of the things that you'd like to see different as we move forward?
Well, I think what's really important is that the voice of the survivors always have to be heard and understood. It's the survivors that have to say what's needed and how it has to be done. And there has to be the Government of Canada. The Government of Canada has a role in all of this too. The Government of Canada has to hold those churches accountable for what they did to our people. And it's so important. Accountability is important. It speaks about truth. Accountability.
Yeah.
So what I want to see is the churches being accountable, the federal government holding the churches accountable, the federal government putting First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people first and foremost, and the voices of the survivors must be the lead. They must be the lead on everything and anything that is relating to truth and reconciliation.
Now, Claudette, as I mentioned just off the top there, you were the first Indigenous chancellor of the University of Ottawa, and congratulations, by the way. That's a great honor. And just how are you using that role to, help Indigenous communities and people and non-Indigenous, how are you using your role to sort of move forward reconciliation?
Very good question. Education. And I'll reflect on the words of Justice Murray Sinclair when he said it was education that got us into this. It's education going to take us out of this. So education. Most importantly, it's to promote my people, the Algonquin people whose land that the university is on, and talk about our history, who we are as a people, and also Indigenous peoples, to raise the fact that Indigenous wisdom has been here since time immemorial. Our knowledges, our ways of knowing and being and doing, but also to educate all non-Indigenous peoples at the university, from the administration to the staff to the students, the history of Canada. The history of Canada. Pre-contact history, colonial history, Canadian history, and it's so important, history. In order to know where you're going, you have to know where you come from, and Canada needs to know where they come from. And so that is something that I will promote on the foundation of truth, honesty, history, and reflection, for them to reflect who they are as Canadians. And it's important that we walk together on that road of reconciliation, but it's going to be on the principles of truth and education.
Really well said. Yeah, absolutely, really well said. And I mean, some provinces still don't recognize the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation as a statutory holiday. I mean, just a stone's throw away across the Ottawa River over in Quebec, they don't. I mean, what do you make of that? How do you feel about that? That it's still not a day for them?
Well, the question I ask is why not?
Yeah.
It's a simple question, why not? And why can't they answer that in a simple way? I mean, if every province that doesn't believe that this should be a statutory holiday, they should look at themselves and say, well, they are part of this journey of reconciliation.
Absolutely.
So they should step up to the plate. They should they should respect that what September 30th stands for. And if they don't want to make it in a statutory holiday, then should be doing, all these provinces, they should be having these activities to honor, to remember, and show respect to the Indian residential school survivors.
Absolutely, and just when it comes to reconciliation, I mean, small things like renaming streets and taking down some statues, they're relatively easy, and renaming bridges and that sort of thing. But what are some of the bigger issues that you'd like to see governments tackle?
Honor the treaties. Honor the treaties. We've all heard the slogan, land back. We need to have access to all our lands, not just reserve lands, but all our ancestral lands. We need to have the jurisdiction of our lands and natural resources. The government of Canada, or even Canadians in general, because they're all part of this, they need to understand what their constitutional law is. It's Section 9124, what that fiduciary obligation that the federal government and even Canadians owe to First Nations people. Very important. The other part is that First Nations people have to have, we always have to be at the table, everything and anything related, especially if they're going to be making laws that's going to impact our people, we need to be there. And it's not just about consulting, it's about we have decision-making power. After all, we have been here since time immemorial, long before 1867 when the government of Canada became in existence.
Well, Claudette, that's a lot of what you said is really well said, and I'm sure a lot of our audience who's listening to this is going to resonate a lot with what you said. But I do know you're a part of this ceremony. I believe you're giving the blessing, right? So I want to thank you just for taking a few minutes and speaking with us today on a day like this. So thank you, miigwech, to you for this.
Thank you, Daniel. I truly appreciate having this opportunity
Accessible
to speak
seating
my
areas are
truth.
provided for both